About it, Illustrator was traditionally made for publishing, for printing, and inside of Illustrator, it was made for typography and letters. Okay, and so for the next couple classes, 2 or 3 weeks, at least 3 weeks, we'll be doing all kinds of things with letters and typography and stuff. Okay. First thing though is we need to learn a history. Talk history because we love history, and history is important to us, so we know where we've been and where we're going. Okay, so the history would be the computer fonts. Okay, before we had the graphical user interface, of course, we were looking at some LCD or some old Cathar Ray tube fonts, and they're like green on a black background. It was horrible. And then, of course, Apple came along and they developed the graphical user interface. Of course, necessarily Apple, of course. Xerox part did, but whatever. Steve Jobs stole, whatever. And we had the graphical user interface that we use today. And in order to use the graphical user interface, though, we needed to have fonts that would work on the computer. So the people that owned most of the fonts is why, the giant building in downtown San Jose, a big, gray, ugly building, of course, is what? Adobe headquarters. And Adobe didn't build these giant buildings because of Photoshop. They built those giant buildings because they learned and they owned the license to most of the fonts in the world. Okay? And how the font is. In fact, it was Adobe and HP that developed that thing in the back of the room, that little laser printer back there, right? So we all use that little laser printer back there. Okay, how do I go from the screen to a piece of paper? Adobe and HP own that technology. Of course, it's called PostScript. Okay, that's a language. Okay, the language PostScript tells the printer how to display the fonts and graphics and everything. And so there's a variety of different types of PostScripts, but let's talk history a little bit. To the first font, imagine that was called Type 1. Whoosh, what a name. Type 1 font. Okay, the first computer font for the graphical user interface, made by Adobe and HP. One of the downfalls of the Type 1 font was that you had to have both a screen as well as a printer installed in your computer. I can spell printer nicely. Screen and printer. Dying here. Printer. So what did that mean? And then you had to have specific size. Let's say you wanted to use 12-point times. You had to have 12-point times on your computer. You had to have 14-point times. Let's say you wanted to use 36-point. You had to have that. And you had to have a screen version to see it on the screen as well as a printer version to send it to the printer. Okay, so I remember those days. I used to look at my font suitcase and I would see, oh, there's 12-point, 14-point, 36-point. You had to have different sizes and all that. It was kind of a mess. Okay, and then if you wanted to send it to the printer, you had to have a corresponding printer font and screen font the same. So it was hard. So back in the 90s, early 90s or late 80s, early 90s, they developed a better way, and it was called TrueType. TrueType. Or TTF is the extension, .TTF. We'll be using most of those today. What TTF allowed you to do is it allowed you to have scalable fonts. So you have one font suitcase, so you have one font, but that font can scale to any size, as well as the TrueType font can be sent to the printer, and it would print it out. Okay, so Apple or Adobe came up with the TrueType font to be able to have fonts that are scalable. The downfall of the TrueType font is that it didn't scale beautifully. If you scaled certain fonts, the space between the letters kind of got a little, too much space or not enough space, and they overlapped, or ascending and descending things kind of mixed. It wasn't perfect, but it did save. There was a downfall, though. You had to have a Mac version and a Windows version. I think today's TrueType can work on either way. But in old days, you had to have a Mac version for Mac and a Windows version for Windows. And then, of course, the latest one that we use today is called OpenType. OpenType is the latest font. I think the extension is OTF. Yeah. I guess it's by OTF. The beauty of the OpenType that Adobe came up with is that it was, of course, scalable, just like the TrueType. It was cross-platformable. You could use it on Mac or Windows. And then, of course, they included a lot of different ligatures and things to make sure that as you scaled it, the space between the letters and things like that stayed consistent. And so there's a lot of little details that are in the font that allow it to scale properly. And you can read about that on the Adobe website. So these are the ones that we use today, probably these two, type 1. And so today when we go to search for fonts and install it on our computer, you might find the TrueType font, you might find an open font. Either one of them will work. Here on the Macintosh computer, we have a font book is a program that's installed on these computers. It allows you to install a font. Now remember, if your program's running, the font won't be installed. Okay, so if you have Illustrator running, and then you try and install a font, it's not going to be available on Illustrator because it's running. So you have to quit Illustrator, install your font, and then start Illustrator. So let's download some fonts. So again, I'm going to quit Illustrator. Look, quit. Okay, don't save. So probably a fun website to do this kind of font looking stuff is dafont.com, the font. Now, this website is kind of like, it's open. So what I mean by that is that it is, anybody can put a font on here. And you can make your fonts available to other people. It's like SoundCloud, right? You write music, you put your music on SoundCloud, and write your music, right? So the problem, though, of course, is since this is a website that's kind of open to everybody, you could get a virus. I've never got a virus, but I've heard of other people getting viruses from here. Be careful. Hopefully you have some virus software on your computer, Kaspersky on your Windows system, or something. I don't know. I never. Warning. Don't blame me if you get a virus on here. I told you ahead of time. Okay? Because I can see that. The teacher told us to go get that, and I got a virus.
Are you recording this?
I'm recording it right now. So hey, we got a record. Okay, so this is a wonderful website. What's that?
Is there any other except that font?
No, there's a whole bunch of font sites. Yes, this is just the easiest for right now for today. We'll go to Adobe. There's a type kit, something called Adobe Type Kit that we're going to look at. Where you can go and install Adobe fonts and things like that. So yeah, there's going to be more than just this one. I just wanted to show you this one because it's a nice free one. Adobe Type Kit costs money. There's some free ones, but the good ones that you want to use, they charge you money for. You know, because there's a lot of really good fonts. Adobe makes the best fonts in the world. That's why they got the giant buildings. They charge a lot of money for fonts. Fonts are expensive. In fact, I remember when the whole Adobe, if you wanted to buy the whole Adobe collection at one time, it was $8,000 just to get all the Adobe fonts. Okay, so if you wanted the entire Adobe collection, it would take like $8,000. Okay, so here we are. Let's say you wanted to look at some letter forms. Again, there's a whole bunch of, anybody makes these fonts. If you just click on a category like old school, you can go down and you can see. This is almost like a college kind of look to the font. They also have, hey, the thing went away. Stencil's kind of cool, and Army. I've used this Capture It before. I like this font. I've used this before. And so on. Army Rust. You see there's a whole bunch of them there. Then, of course, you have Sci-Fi is always my favorite. You got some sci-fi ones there. You can search. Let's say you're making a Valentine's. Oh, I guess Valentine's Day is over. How about St. Patty's Day, right? We can type. Oh, it came back on. St. Patty, P-A-T-T-Y, Patty, St. Patty. I don't know. Is there something for St. Patrick's Day? No. I guess not. Well, what if, say, Christmas? Maybe you're doing a Christmas card. You type in Christmas. And you got a whole bunch of, there's dingbats that you can get, Christmas fonts. Look at this one, Christmas snow. Now here's the kicker inside here. Of course, this is people making this available to anybody. Of course, they're designers, and they have the rights to the things they make. We call that copyright. And you'll notice over here, you got different options for the copyright. Free for personal use. But if I use this and put it on a billboard going down 101, would I be illegal? Badly, unless you ask for permission, I guess. Right? So just be aware, there's different type of licensing here. A lot of them are free for personal use. Some of them say totally free. Some of them say one time. Some of them want you to donate. See, donate to the author. Hey, give them some money. Maybe you can use them on your billboard. 100% free, right there, like that. So you can put that on your billboard on 101 and woohoo! You know? So just be aware. Fonts are like any other piece of computer hardware. Okay, there's a licensing agreement to them. Even when you install fonts, usually there's a little message. Okay, so let's say you go through and say, ooh, I love these ones. Look at this. I want to use this. 100% free right there. If you click download, it's going to ask you download. Don't open it with the archive yet. We'll do that together. I'm going to save. So go through and I'm going to save that one. Let's go through and let's look at some ones that I like. Again, I kind of like the sci-fi one. The sci-fi one, you got, say you're doing a Star Wars kind of thing right there. 100% free right there. Let's download Star Wars there. I'm going to download that one. Let's see. The Celtic ones have a lot of really interesting ones in there. Download one of those. School. Oh, look at it. You get handwritten ones. They're kind of interesting, right? Handwritten ones. Download one of those. And again, they even have a holiday option over here. Holiday option. They got animals. Under dingbats, these are all little graphics. I think we were looking at that last class. Didn't we look at like trees? We downloaded a tree font, didn't we, or something like that? Didn't we download a tree something? Yeah, that's what I thought. We did the tree font. And then, of course, we got graffiti. I've used this one before. Some interesting one there. There's just so many. You could spend hours looking at fonts on here. Hours. Ooh, I like the 3D ones there. Look at that one. Like this one's a cool one. Okay, whatever. You get the idea? Okay, you can go through, think of what you're trying to accomplish. I've downloaded some from here that I've used before and some things, commercial projects and so on. Again, make sure you look at the licensing agreement before you violate some kind of license, okay? So, I don't know. You could spend some time. Again, other ones that I liked, I like these kind of dirty ones like this. Cracked ones. They got some nice, this is like a zombie one, right? Anarchy. So when you're all done, where does it go? So what it's doing is it's downloading a zip file. So these files that you download from this website are compressed. Okay, so you need to go and uncompress them and then install them. Again, the program to manage the fonts on the Mac is called a font book. So if I'm going to minimize this here, I'm going to hide my Firefox. Where did it download them? It downloaded them into my downloads folder. So if I go to my hard drive over here and go to downloads, you'll notice inside downloads you'll see where all my fonts are. Again, they're all in zip format. To uncompress and install them, I open up the zip by double clicking on it to uncompress it. And once I uncompressed it, you'll notice it either gives you a folder with the font inside it, or it gives you just a, and you'll notice right here the extension is .ttf. Again, stands for True Type Font, right? And if I double click on it here on the Mac, it'll open it and say, hey, do you want to install font? You can see it opens up in something called Font Book, and you can say install font in the lower corner, and it's going to ask you, do you want to install it? And it might come up with a message making sure that it installs right. Just hit OK. And so,
do that again one time, just from the unzipping.
Yeah, we're going to do, I got a bunch of fonts to unzip. So again, here's another zip file right here. So I'm going to double click on that zip file. It'll either give you a folder. See, this one gave you a folder. Inside that folder was most likely a TTF or OTF. Look at this one. OTF stands for what? Open Type Font. Remember that? So that's another format. Again, you can just double click on that and it will open up in here inside the font book, and you say install font. Okay, and so we installed that one. Let's see. It goes to the downloads folder. Downloads. Stereo Punk. And this one just opens up True Type. So install that one. I've used the drip markers before. That one's a good one. Oh, I have an Angry Birds font. How do you get Angry Birds? Ooh. And then Jedi font. Jedi font. And what else? Oh, the Celtic one. Very nice. And if you get this message, just click on the little box and say check installed, and hopefully it installs without a problem. And so once you have a whole bunch of fonts, again, this is called the font book. It's a way of managing fonts in your computer. You can either tell them to be turned on and off in this program in the font book. You can validate fonts. You can disable fonts. And the reason why you might want to disable fonts is that the fonts take up RAM. When you run a program, it takes all those fonts and loads them in the RAM. So if you have a computer that doesn't have a lot of RAM, putting a whole bunch of fonts on there is going to take up memory. Okay, so just keep that in mind. The more fonts you have, the more memory it's using. But these computers hopefully have enough memory. And I'm going to go back to Illustrator. Remember, I had to quit Illustrator before I installed my font. And we're just gonna play with letters today. That's all we're gonna do. I'm gonna go over all the different features of letters for the next couple weeks. We're gonna be using lots of typography here. So again, I'm gonna start with a blank document. Doesn't really matter. And now again, let's look at how to install or use fonts. We already installed them. So how we use them inside of Illustrator, of course, is by using the text tool right here. You'll notice there is a text tool right here. Now, when you use the text tool, there's a whole bunch of other ones underneath there, okay? And we'll be using all of them, okay? We're going to be using them. So the type tool is two ways of using it. One is just to click with the type tool, click once, and you can type in some text. And it types in some text. Let me zoom in, make it a little bit bigger. Again, after you type in some text, you can scale it if you want. Again, all I did was click. I used the text tool and I just clicked and I typed in some letters. I can change my font if I want by using the character pop-up window. There's a whole bunch of windows for typography inside of Illustrator. Probably the easiest one to use is called character. So if you go under window, type, you go to character. And then the character option is if you have your text selected using the black or direct select or the selection tool here, you can go over to the character window and change the font right there without having to select it. If you're using the type tool, you can't really come over here and change it. It's going to want, oh, it did work, but I don't know. You don't have to select it. I just use the black arrow. There we go. And again, under character here, another way to use the type tool inside of Illustrator is to draw a box. When we get to making things with columns, we're going to be using a box for our letters. And so what I mean by that is if I use my type tool now, the first time I did it I clicked and I just typed in some text. Another way to use the type tool is to click and draw a box with the type tool. When I release my mouse and I type my text, it'll wrap to the box. Okay, so when we go to making things with multiple columns, we're going to be using the same type tool, but instead of just clicking with the type tool, you draw a box. We'll give you a box that you can use to put in a whole bunch of letters, and they can wrap. If you have more letters than the size of the box, watch what happens in the corner. It'll give you a little red dot. See the little red plus shows up? There's a little red plus right here. That little red plus, whenever you see that, is telling you inside Illustrator you have more letters than are in the box. You can either make the box bigger or make another box. So again, I can use the selection tool and I can make the box bigger. Notice how it's not scaling. Remember when I used the black arrow with this single line of text, I can scale it like this. But if I'm using a box of text and I'm using the black selection tool, it's not scaling it, it's changing the size of the box. Okay? So just be aware of that. That's a common way of dealing with fonts. We won't use this box thing very much today. I'm just going to close it. Just be aware of it. If you draw with the type tool in a box shape, it's going to put it in a box, which is different than if you hold the mouse down. You might say the area type tool, wouldn't that be a box? No. The area type tool that is underneath the type option is for putting type inside a shape, right? Let's say you drew a shape. Let's say you drew a shape like let's say you drew a balloon. Here's my balloon. There we go. A balloon. And I wanted to put the letters inside the balloon shape. That's where you use the area type tool. That tool now is used to put text inside a box so that you can type it inside a box. So it's different than clicking and dragging like I did with a normal type tool. The area type tool is for putting text inside a box or inside a shape. Okay, so that was the difference. Don't use this one for a box or a column. I use the normal type tool for a column. This is for putting text in a shape. Then of course text along a path is just like it says. We're going to put text along a line. So if you draw a stroke or a line, it's going to put text along that. Vertical goes vertical instead of horizontal, or same as all these. And then this last one, touch type tool, is for programming. It's for if you're going to do some kind of programming with your Illustrator. I can make a whole website in Illustrator and put it on the internet with buttons and everything. We don't need to go there right now. Let's just do basic type. Okay. Let's talk about our letters. Here's our letters. So there is some downfalls to typography and there's some limitations. Let's talk about the limitations. One limitation to the type tool is you can't put a gradient in the letters. I click gradient, no gradient. Look, I click gradient. I don't see gray to black. I don't see gradient. Okay, so no gradient. And normally, we'll get gradient in there. I'm just saying gradient is a little bit different. You can't put a gradient in there. In addition, you have both fill and stroke on your letters. I can go to the stroke and give that a color, and you'll see I have my stroke. In addition to stroke, you can change the size of the stroke. Notice by default the stroke goes in both, wraps the text around on the outside as well as on the inside of the letters. You can actually change that in the appearance window, and we'll do that later. Text can be stretched. Again, you can do the free transform that we just showed if we wanted to give it on an angle like that. Just like we did with our, remember what we did with the fruit? Remember doing that with the fruit? I can actually make myself a nice shadow with this. Here, let's do a quick, we learned how to do a shadow. Let's do a shadow with our letters here. How about we duplicate our letters just like we did with the other ones. Squish them down, maybe skew them a little bit with the same technique we used with the fruit. And what would we do? How about we get rid of the stroke, and then, oh no, leave the stroke on. How about we undo that? Let's just make them both black, and then let's blur it. Remember doing blur? There we go. We can blur letters. Oof, not so much. There we go. How about that? Just like we did earlier, we can give our letters a shadow. How about that? Very quickly, just like we did with the fruit. Okay, let's move on. I just wanted to point that out because we did fruit today. Let's remove that. Okay, again, there is a limitation. You can't put a gradient in there, but you can put a gradient doing a different way, and that way is by using the appearance window. Okay, so if you remember, the appearance window is something that we used when we were applying effects to objects, right? You wanted to change the effect. It's an appearance window. Well, if you want, you go to Window Appearance to bring the appearance window up. In the appearance window, you'll notice there is a stroke and a fill. Okay. So right now, if I select my letters, right now, in the appearance window, nothing comes up. There's nothing in there. Because right now, all it says is character. Right now, you can change the font. Or actually, you just click on the character, and you'll see I got a stroke and a fill. If I want to give my letters a gradient, what I can do is apply a new fill inside of the appearance window and then add a gradient to that. So in the appearance window, you'll notice you have a stroke and a fill option, new fill, new stroke. So if I add a fill to my letters, add a fill, it adds a fill. You'll see it right here. Notice how it took over some of the thing. And then I can apply a gradient to that. Oh, there's a gradient now. And then I can adjust my gradient using my, of course, gradient tool here. And we already looked at how to do the gradient tool. So if I wanted to, I can give my, oops, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to, how do I get colors in there? Oh, there we go. We can drag them in. There we go. How about green and purple? We'll put a yellow in the middle. There we go. Woo. In fact, one of my first logos I ever made looked just like that. I made for an art gallery or art group in New York City. I made them a logo, and I made it just like that. Just a gradient, and it said art something. I wish I could find it. What was it? Art something.
Could you do a radial gradient?
Sure. You just change it to radial gradient here. And of course you can adjust your radial gradient in different ways. And if you haven't really worked with radial gradients, you might be good to try them. Try making the best ball. If you've never worked with, and I go over this in one of the videos. If you've watched that video of me talking about gradients, there's a video of me talking about gradients. Try and make the ball. If you're new to gradients, you really need to practice. Weather is crappy outside anyways. It's raining like crazy. Stay home and practice your Illustrator. If you use your ellipse tool, and then let's change our gradient here. I'm just going to go off on gradients for a moment here. So if you wanted to make something look like a ball, use your linear gradient and adjust that. No, I didn't want to do that. There we go. That's what I wanted. Got that stuck there, didn't I? Okay, whatever. I'm not gonna. Let's get back to letters. So again, a way to put gradients in letters is, notice though when I put a fill inside there, it covered up more of my stroke, right? But I can give it a new stroke if I want. And by giving it a new stroke, notice how I have two strokes now. Two strokes. I have a red stroke and a black stroke. And the reason why is I have the original stroke, and then I have an added stroke. So I have two strokes. I don't know why it's saying no stroke here. Oh, I must have applied more than one. Okay, again, you can add a new stroke already to the existing stroke. If you don't want the red one, you can just turn it off. You can turn off this stroke if you want. No stroke. And you could have. And the advantage of this is that it could be a different stroke. That's all. Okay. So stroke, gradient inside of your letters. Now here's some problems with your letters, of course, is that the letters are seen as type, which means it has to look to the font book folder or the font folder to render these objects. A lot of times you're going to be working inside of Illustrator, you're going to have to do things with your letters that needs to be an object and not letters anymore. And I think we looked at this last class when we were doing that tree thing. We can convert the letters to an object. To convert the letters to an object inside of Illustrator is you select them, and if it's underneath typography or type right here, and we say create outlines. By using the type create outlines, we convert our object or type to objects, and we can use it like any other object. Okay, it's got dots around the outside. You can, if you want to stretch the stroke, you can grab the bottom dots and stretch it on down to give yourself a look like that. So if you're trying to get something like that, you convert it to an object, and you can stretch the points around. You can do whatever you want with the points. Isn't that fun? Okay, let me start again with some new text. This was a nice fun one here. Let's move it away. Oops. Move it away. Move it away. Okay, let me start a new letter. So let's put some text on there. Now, if you want to apply some effects, there's a whole bunch of effects that can be applied to letters themselves or typography itself. And those are located underneath the type option. And, well, where did they move them to? Under effects, 3D, no, 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 I want this, no, no. Where's my type text? Oh, under warp. So underneath effects, warp, these are kind of a lot of these effects under effects, I guess effects, yeah, effects under effects. The one that's called warp is kind of specifically for typography. It used to be one of the options under type, and these are common ways to manipulate your fonts. So if this is fishing, I can use fish, and it'll give you a fish kind of look. Oh, I gotta select my text first. Select your text, effects, warp. I'm gonna use fish, and you'll notice you can do different fish effects. You can do rise, arc. So if you want your letters to arc like that, there's an arc, and you can arc it in different ways. Yeah, a bunch of options for that. Lower arc, upper arc, arch, shell lower, I don't know, squeeze, twist, and rise. The fish one looks good for fish, right? There we go. So you're making a fishing logo. There you go. Sell that to the latest fishing people. There it is. Fishing. Okay, so those effects are kind of follow along they were normally for typography. It's underneath there. It's the warp ones. But you can use all kinds of different ones, all kinds of different effects. Another really, there's all kinds of different ways that you can use the letters in effects the same way. You can also use effects on, a lot of the effects that I do inside of letters is by duplicating them and using two of them. And so, let's say I want this to be, let's give it a color. Oh, that's typography. I want to do inside. There we go. So, and then we want to have kind of a rough edge to it. You can actually use your typography, again, under effects. You have all these other ones. One of the ones I like to use is the ones that go around the outside of things, like the scribble effect. The scribble effect will give you that kind of look. And not too much scribble. And then I can put that over top of my letters here and maybe move it behind my letters. And so if you want something like that, look at that, really quick. So play with some of the effects. Usually when I'm using effects, I do it on multiple objects. Remember when we did that with the fruit, right? With the fruit? Okay, so don't try and apply everything to the same stuff. Right? You can do, and I can duplicate this again. There we go. Let's duplicate that again. And then let's do something else. Okay, well, not only would you do that, another good thing you can do is apply a brush to the stroke. We can do that. There, let me think of how I did that in the past. Stroke. I'll have to think about that. It'll come to me. A brush. The stroke. Get rid of that. No, not that. And then, oh, I'd have to make it an object. That's why. Yeah. You can apply texture if you made a texture to your letters. Again, this is just a default texture that's in there, but you can do a pattern. Remember we were making patterns? You can apply patterns to your letters as well. Very interesting there. Applying patterns, mixing 3 together. If you wanted to adjust any of these things, again, they're all under the appearance where you have your different options, where your warp is and so on, are all underneath appearance window in the appearance window. To give yourself metal looking letters, there's actually different gradients already made for you inside of Illustrator. So if I was going to make, let's say we type in the word metal, right? We like our heavy metal here, metal. And let's give ourselves a nice font. Can I download some nice fonts? Angry Birds. Ooh, there we go. Kind of metal looking right there, right? Angry Birds. Okay, I'm going to go with the Angry Birds. Okay, again, you can't put a gradient on there. I can't just come over here and select my text and go boom and put a gradient on there. It's not going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and apply, again, underneath the appearance window, I'm going to apply a new fill right here. Then I can apply a gradient, but of course, I'd have to make my own gradient. There's probably some pre-made gradients out there for you already. Okay, so if you go to the gradient window, no, it's not there. Where are my pre-made gradients? They're going to be underneath the swatches window. Under swatches, you'll see there's one that says Open Swatch Library. So again, where you can find all kinds of effects inside of Illustrator, like we want to give this a metal look or a glass look. There's actually glass look to things. Those things are different swatch libraries. And to open swatch libraries is under, there's a couple different places that you can find them. One of them is called Graphic Styles. Graphic Styles. And if you go to the Graphic Styles, it's under Window Graphic Styles. There's a whole bunch of pre-made ones in there. You got your blue. Look at that. Ooh, beautiful blue. You got kind of, whatever that is. I don't want that. Let's go back to the blue. Or if you go to the upper right corner, you can load. There's a whole bunch of other ones in there. Like I said, there's neon effects, scribble effects, textures, type effects. There's a whole bunch of type effects. Here they are. There's a bunch of type effects here you can use. Here's a metal looking. There it is. Woo. See, I didn't have to try it. Oh, to get to the effects that I'm using is located underneath the graphic styles. So window, graphic styles. In the upper right corner of the graphic styles pop-up window is one that says Open Graphic Styles. And inside there's a whole bunch of things you can apply. Again, you might need to apply it to using the appearance window maybe. Maybe some of you don't have to. The luminate styles. These are really kind of glassy looking ones. Rust. look at that one. What are some other ones in there? Where was I at? Graphic styles. Oh, I really like the neon effects. Get some nice neon effects. And then some other ones would be button and rollovers. If you want to adjust the effect, I said I love this blue that I've chosen here. I like the effect, but I want it to be green. Right? It's blue. I want it to be green. How can I adjust these effects after I have applied them? You can adjust these effects after you applied them inside the appearance window. If you go again to the appearance window, you'll notice it has put a whole bunch of things on top. It's got a whole bunch of things on top. Notice there's multiple fills. See them? If you click on them, you can then go and adjust them. Let's say in the gradient window. I got too many windows open now. Gradient, gradients. Oh, here it is. So here you go. So if I click on it here, look, this is the fill. This is on top. See it on top? I can then go here and I wanted green, right? Well, let's make this green. Let's make that green. And then this one, make that green. Make that green. And this one, make that green. Make that green. And then this one we can make yellow. Oh, we don't want that. We don't want it to be solid. Undo that. Can't undo. Go back to gradient. So basically what those effects are, or you know, these graphic styles are actually a bunch of pre-made effects that have been applied, and then you can apply them to your thing, and then you can go in there and change them. And again, they were called graphic styles. Another way, and this will be my last way because I know it's getting late in here already. So another way to apply effects to your letters is, like I said, in the swatches library, there's actually more swatches, and you have all these built-in colors. There is a metal one in there, and you'll see it gives you metal colors right there, and then you can make your own gradient from that swatch. That's sort of what I was trying to come up with here. So if I wanted to make my own kind of metal look without using the pre-made, there's pre-made swatches already for you. Again, they're located in the upper swatch window here in the upper corner. You can load swatches. There's a whole bunch of them. Scientific, skin tones, neutral, and you can use these colors as pre-starting food. Ice cream? I've never seen that one. Ice cream. But there's like a metal ones, and then I can apply a gradient to my letters like I did. Let me close some of these things here. Where is my my appearance window? Lost it. There it is. I can apply a fill to that, and then I can go and apply a gradient to that, and then in that gradient I can then go and apply my metal look. So here we go. Apply there, 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 and then do a really tight Okay, that's not very good. Whatever. I think that's enough for today. I think I demoed. You have lots of things to play with. You can work on your fruit, and I'm going to